John Arthur Johnson, nicknamed the Galveston Giant, was an American boxer who, at the height of the Jim Crow era, became the first black world heavyweight boxing champion. His 1910 fight against James J. Jeffries was dubbed the fight of the century. Johnson defeated Jeffries, who was white, triggering dozens of race riots across the U.S. According to Phil McKirkin Burns. For more than 13 years, Jack Johnson was the most famous and the most notorious black boxer on earth. He is widely regarded as one of the most influential boxers in history. Transcending boxing, he became part of the culture and history of racism in the United States. Johnson was born on March 31, 1878, and died in June 10, 1946, aged 68. Johnson boxing record: total fights 95, wins 72, wins by KO 38, losses 11, draws 11, no contests 3. In 1912, Johnson opened a successful and luxurious Black and Tan, desegregated restaurant and nightclub, which in part was run by his wife, a white woman. Major newspapers of the time soon claimed that Johnson was attacked by the government only after he became famous as a black man married to a white woman, and was linked to other white women. Johnson was arrested on charges of violating Femin Act forbidding one to transport a woman across state lines for immoral purposes, a racially motivated charge that embroiled him in controversy for his relationships, including marriages. Sentenced to a year in prison, Johnson fled the country and fought boxing matches abroad for 7 years until 1920, when he served his sentence at the federal penitentiary at Leavenworth. Johnson continued paying fights for many years and operated several other businesses, including lucrative endorsement deals. He died in a car crash in 1946 at the age of 68. He is buried at Graceland Cemetery in Chicago. In 2018, Johnson, with some instigation from actor Sylvester Stallone, was formally pardoned by U.S. President Donald Trump. Early life: the third child of 9, born to Henry and Tina Johnson, former slaves who worked service jobs as a janitor and a dishwasher. His father had served as a civilian teamster of the Union's 38th Colored Infantry. He was described by his son as the most perfect physical specimen that he had ever seen, although Henry had been left with an atrophied right leg from his service in the American Civil War. Growing up in Galveston, Texas, Johnson attended 5 years of school. As a young man, Johnson was frail though, like all of his siblings, he was expected to work. Although Johnson grew up in the South, he said that segregation was not an issue in the somewhat secluded city of Galveston, as everyone living in the 12th Ward was poor and went through the same struggles. Johnson remembers growing up with a gang of white boys, in which he never felt victimized or excluded. Remembering his childhood, Johnson said, "As I grew up, the white boys were my friends and my pals. I ate with them, played with them, and slept at their homes. Their mothers gave me cookies, and I ate at their tables. No one ever taught me that white men were superior to me." Jack Johnson's mother, Tina, was a huge influence in Jack's life. When Jack was younger, he was known as a coward and his sister, Lucy, would protect him. After Jack came home bruised and crying, his mom warned him that if he were to get beat at school, then she would whip him worse at home. Her method was to scare him and for him to learn the lesson that he needs to protect himself. The lesson was received by Jack, as he never lost a fight to a schoolboy again. After Johnson quit school, he began a job working at the local docks. He made several other attempts at working other jobs around town, till one day he made his way to Dallas, finding work at the racetrack exercising horses. Jack stuck with this job until he found a new apprenticeship with a carriage painter by the name of Walter Lewis. Lewis enjoyed watching friends spar, and Johnson began to learn how to box. Johnson later declared that it was thanks to Lewis that he became a boxer. At 16, Johnson moved to New York City and found living arrangements with Barbadus Joe Walcott, a welterweight from the West Indies. Johnson again found work exercising horses for the local stable, until he was fired for exhausting a horse. On his return to Galveston, He was hired as a janitor at a gym owned by German-born heavyweight fighter Herman Bernot. Johnson eventually saved enough money to buy boxing gloves, sparring every chance he got. At one point, when Johnson was arrested for brawling with a man named Davy Pearson, a grown and toughened man who accused Johnson of turning him in to the police over a game off craps. When both of them were released from jail, they met at the docks, and Johnson beat Pearson before a large crowd. Johnson then fought in a summer boxing league against a man named John Must-Have-It Lee. Because of prisifying illegal in Texas, the fight was broken up and moved to the beach, where Johnson won his first fight and a prize of $1.50.